I love the early mornings at work. I think I enjoy the serenity of the atmosphere. I water the potted plants by the window and crack open the slightly ajar window to let in some fresh air. Since I started working at this company, this routine hasn't changed. My name is Tom, and I'm 30 years old. I work in sales for a major general trading company. My sales performance is consistently the lowest month after month. My superiors and colleagues don't think highly of me, believing I lack motivation. In reality, I'm not interested in work or climbing the corporate ladder. When I accompany colleagues on sales calls, I'm more of a hindrance, so my main task has become taking care of the little errands for my colleagues who are out doing sales. Work moderately, live moderately, and live quietly without drawing attention are my mottos. However, someone came this year in the transfers who seemed determined to shake up my quiet life. "You are early again today, Tommy," with that cheerful greeting, her slender arms wrap around my neck. I felt the warmth of her body against my back. "Good morning, Jessica. You're energetic early in the morning." I unwrapped her arms from around my neck without making it seem too harsh. Her name is Jessica. She's our supervisor who transferred here this spring. Having spent time abroad, she speaks 3 languages fluently and is 4 years older than me, a true talent. She's always cheerful, and her straightforward personality makes her popular among both men and women. She's also perfect as a superior, and those who initially complained about having a female boss surrendered within a week of her appointment. Or, "Why so cold? There's no one else here." Jessica pouted after I pushed her arms away. For some reason, she's taken a liking to me. I'm just a regular office worker who doesn't excel at his job. She, on the other hand, is a go-getter and a real career woman. I have no idea why she's so fixated on someone like me. "It's not about that, Jessica. You're a bit too touchy-feely for my liking." I've recently become more assertive in voicing this. In the beginning, I was just bewildered and didn't know how to react. At first, you'd blush and it was so cute, but lately, you've gotten a bit cheeky. Jessica took a seat next to my desk, leaning back in the chair to its fullest extent. I could hear the sound of her spine cracking. She probably worked late into the night yesterday. She's usually the first one to come in after me. And she's probably the last one to leave in our department. "You know I have to spell things out for you, right?" I said with a sigh. "Speaking your mind is fine, but treating me unfairly, that's not cool," she retorted, puffing out her cheeks, and she gave a little kick to the chair I was sitting in. Her gesture reminded me of a sulking child. It's a side of her completely different from her professional demeanor. Honestly, I can't wrap my head around why such a talented and beautiful woman, 4 years my senior, is so aggressively pursuing me. The entire department has come to recognize and accept this dynamic between Jessica and me. I find this situation deeply concerning. I constantly worry that being around a guy like me, who lacks motivation, might tarnish her reputation. Yesterday, I even found myself making a wish at the local chapel, hoping to get back my peaceful days. Anyway, no excessive PDA. I told her in as cold a voice as I could muster, and a disgruntled "all right" came in response. Truth be told, it's not unpleasant having a beauty like her make advances. However, the drawbacks are significant. I get jealous comments from male colleagues, and recently, from a junior Emily. Time and time again, I stress that I just want to lead a peaceful, inconspicuous life. While sneaking a glance at the back of Jessica, who was stylishly dressed in a slim-fitting pantsuit, I sighed again. Watching her, always so cheerful after having spent time abroad as a child, reminds me of a past I'd rather forget. I think only the HR folks at work know this, but I'm actually a returnee from overseas. I spent my childhood constantly moving from one foreign country to another because of my dad's job. I didn't come back to the US until I was 15. Being right smack in the middle of my teenage years probably didn't help. Having lived in multiple countries, I was a social butterfly. I thought, I'll fit right into an American high school in no time. But reality wasn't so straightforward. I made friends quickly, and at first, I think my life in the US was smooth sailing. The one person who brought my high school life crashing down was a single girl. Hell began when I was in 11th grade, and she ended up in my class. For whatever reason, she had it out for me. Stuff like, he's flaunting that he lived abroad, or he's too cocky and flashy, or he just doesn't get it. Being the queen bee at the top of the school hierarchy, she probably thought she could get her way with everything. The moment she spoke against me, my life changed. No one would talk to me or even make eye contact. Everyone was scared stiff of her. Then, I realized, if I tried to talk to my close friends, they'd get a hard time too. From that moment, I became invisible. It lasted until graduation. I declared to my dad that I would never attend a college in the US around that time. True to my word, I left for the UK right after high school graduation. Later on, I got into University of Oxford. I only came back to the US because my mom wanted me to. My mom, who was in poor health, I think was feeling a bit vulnerable. I wasn't mature enough to refuse such a request from her. Remembering my high school days, I made a promise to myself on the day I started my job to always stay under the radar. A presence that disrupts my peaceful days. What should I do about Jessica? A thorn in my side. Then, one day, an even bigger problem stood before me. It was a scorcher of a day, and my colleagues, who had been outside on assignments, were shutting down cold water as soon as they returned to the office. I was in charge of odd jogs, so I prepared drinks for them, chilled wet towels, and did everything I could to support. I always made sure never to take center stage in my duties. Tom, a customer specifically asked for you. My junior, Emily, approached me with a puzzled look on her face. It made sense. Nobody had ever specifically asked to speak to me for a business discussion before. Emily seemed a bit worried as she whispered to me in a voice others couldn't hear, "Are you okay?" "I'm not sure, but I'll meet with them anyway." Trying to reassure her, I lightly pat little Emily's shoulder. Yet she seemed to remain concerned and followed behind me. It looked like she intended to join me. I felt like a failure of a senior to have my junior this worried about me. Taking a deep breath, I said, "Excuse me," before knocking. A young woman's voice from the reception room responded, "Please come in." At that moment, cold sweat ran down my back, and I felt a slight dizziness. I instinctively wanted to run away. Not understanding why, the moment I bravely opened the door, I was frozen on the spot. "How many years has it been? You didn't even attend graduation. I was worried if you were even alive." Bright red lips uttered those words. Despite her flashy makeup, it suited her queenly demeanor perfectly. Lucy, why? Lounging on the reception room's sofa was the very person who had brought about my downfall, Lucy. She was the last person I ever wanted to see. I probably looked quite shaken. From behind, Emily asked again, "Are you okay?" I responded with "I'm fine" and took a seat across from Lucy, saying, "Excuse me. When I saw you in the hallway earlier, I didn't think it was really you. I mean, who could have imagined back then that you'd be working for such a prestigious company?" Her condescending and arrogant tone unchanged from our school days. She looked at me with a mocking upward glance and smirked. She seemed like a predator that had just spotted its prey, making my heart feel like it was going to jump out of my chest. Though I felt the need to say something, my mouth was dry and no words would come out. Lucy enjoyed my distress, grinning broadly. I tried to remind myself, I'm not that high school kid anymore. Excuse me, did my subordinate do something rude? I hadn't even noticed when Jessica entered the room, so hearing her voice nearly made me jump out of my skin. Who are you? Lucy asked with a frown, glaring at the sudden appearance. It seemed like she was annoyed, thinking her fun had been interrupted. I'm Jessica, Tom's supervisor. Tom rarely handles business meetings, so I hope he wasn't rude to you. Her face was smiling politely, but her eyes weren't. It felt like sparks were flying between Lucy and Jessica. After a tense moment, it was Lucy who broke first. Fine, I'll let it slide this time. Our companies have had a long-standing relationship since my father's time. Let's keep it that way. Lucy said, standing up and exiting the reception room with a click-clack of her heels. Quickly, Emily went to see Lucy out. The sound of the door slamming shut was the cue that allowed me to finally relax. Considering my unusual reaction, there would likely be questions from Jessica. The sinking feeling of having to explain my past to her weighed me down. Apparently, she's undergoing CEO training. She may come around again, but you don't have to deal with her, Tom. Let's have Emily grow into the role instead, Jessica said with a reassuring pat on my shoulder. Feeling the warmth of her hand, I was on the verge of tears. In the end, Jessica never asked me the reason I was upset that day, and we finished our day's work. I felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me. At the meeting the next day, it was decided that Emily would handle Lucy's account. I was designated as her assistant. I briefly explained to Emily that Lucy and I were high school classmates. From the previous day's events, Emily seemed to have picked up on my reluctance to deal with Lucy. I'm truly grateful for Emily's hard work. She tried her best to cater to Lucy's needs so I wouldn't have to face her. If there was any mistake, as her senior, I'd have to represent the company in front of Lucy. Emily carefully continued the dealings with Lucy's firm. Initially, Lucy demanded me, but when she realized her requests were being denied, she began other tactics to annoy us. She started bringing non-native English speakers to business meetings. Sometimes just acquaintances, and at times, introduced as co-owners. Emily could handle Spanish, French, and Chinese. But occasionally, Lucy would bring along someone who spoke Italian, Portuguese, or Japanese, which Emily couldn't handle. In such cases, Jessica quickly stepped in to support Emily. I felt guilty watching this, knowing I couldn't help. I felt bad burdening my junior, Emily, and worrying Jessica. I kept thinking I was a failure as a professional. One day, our always cheerful Jessica was out sick with a fever. It's rare for her to call in sick, so everyone was concerned. According to Emily, she was overworked and sleep-deprived, leading to a weakened immune system, and she caught a cold. Though it was an unfortunate situation, I hope she'd take a good rest. If Jessica isn't here to help and Lucy brings someone I can't communicate with. Emily gazed anxiously at the words Jessica absent written on the whiteboard. And her fears became a reality. While I, who rarely goes out for client visits, was out assisting a colleague, Lucy suddenly arrived with a troublesome matter. When I returned to the office, I could hear Lucy berating Emily throughout the floor. Rushing into the room, Emily was flustered, being yelled at by Lucy. It seemed that today's negotiation required Italian, Emily's weakness. You do realize this is a trading company, right? How do you work here not knowing Italian? Or are you just looking down on us? Yelling at Emily, without a second thought, Lucy's face didn't show a hint of anger. She was grinning with a nasty smile, seemingly enjoying the situation to the fullest. It looked as if she had found her prey. Your usual helpful supervisor isn't here today. I heard she's feeling under the weather. Can't even take care of her own health. That's so third-rate. Beside the sarcastic Lucy, A young Italian who didn't seem to understand what was going on was nervously watching Emily and Lucy. He was probably dragged here against his will by Lucy. "Well, speak up. Can't do business with someone I introduce you to, or are you going to apologize?" Explaining I don't understand. With Emily's head lowered, Lucy continued to tap her on the back of the head rhythmically with a rolled-up document. Emily's back visibly shivered. Colleagues also observed the situation from a distance, running around searching for someone in the other departments who could speak Italian. Meanwhile, Lucy's attitude kept escalating. "Can't even explain. Come here right now." Saying this, she forcefully pulled Emily off the couch. The moment I saw that, something snapped inside me. "Is there an issue here?" I quickly brushed off the hand Lucy had on Emily's shoulder and shielded her behind me. "Oh, Tom, long time no see. Are you here to play in her place?" Lucy, finding a new target, had a cruel glint in her eyes. Ignoring her completely, I addressed to the flustered young Italian man. "Are you interested in doing business with our company?" Of course, I wasn't speaking in English. Italian flowed naturally from my lips. The young man seemed relieved to finally hear his native language. On the other hand, Lucy was stunned, staring at me in disbelief. The young man excitedly began explaining the plan he had in mind to me. Looking at me engaged in the conversation, Emily seemed genuinely surprised. All this time, she thought I was just some guy who did menial tasks by the window, but suddenly I was speaking Italian fluently and handling the negotiation. Can't blame her for being taken aback. During the negotiation, Lucy seemed to be glaring at me resentfully. In the end, the young man and I shook hands, laughed about the potential for a big deal, and wrapped up our discussion. Emily escorted the young man to the front door as he wanted to report the outcome to his boss right away. Back in the reception room, Lucy and I couldn't tear our eyes away from each other, locked in a stare down. "Nothing's changed with you, huh? Still haven't grown up." I was the first to speak. But Lucy, who I once found intimidating, didn't scare me at all today. Perhaps successfully navigating that tough negotiation boosted my confidence. "Excuse me, what are you trying to say?" Lucy, seemingly caught off guard by my comment, retorted in a flustered manner. She still carried her usual high and mighty, queen bee attitude, but I could sense a hint of panic and fear. "What I'm saying is that you're acting childish, still pulling the same stunts as you did in high school without considering your age." Once I started, I couldn't hold back. Words I'd been holding in for so long came pouring out. "Oh, so you always have someone by your side because you haven't improved your Spanish at all. Must be tough babysitting an inept heiress like you. Don't you realize you're a burden?" I'd figured out pretty early on that Lucy wasn't proficient in Spanish. She probably can't speak Chinese either. Being the daughter of a trading company's CEO, Lucy likely had the stamp of failure pressed upon her. Acting tough probably masked her insecurities. I realize this now, maybe because I've grown up. "What do you know?" She hurled the papers she was holding at me, her voice shaking with anger. Her clenched fist trembled. "Just because you can effortlessly speak other languages, you think you're so great. Give me a break." Lucy's yelling sounded more like a desperate scream to me. Looking back to high school, I realized that the reason Lucy treated me so poorly was probably all due to her own insecurities. I only found out that her father was the CEO of a trading company after graduating from high school. I vaguely recalled that Lucy struggled greatly with her Spanish classes back then. But that's no excuse for the way she treated me. Deal with your own issues yourself. You're a grown-up after all. My words made Lucy's face turn beet red. She must have felt embarrassed being called out like that. She grabbed her bag from the couch and stormed out of the reception room, the sound of her heels echoing on the floor. I thought maybe I was a bit too harsh, but I didn't have the luxury of choosing my words carefully, and it's not like I didn't have any grudges. I hope she forgives me for being a tad bit sharp. Why? Why did you keep quiet about being able to speak? Are you still hiding something from me? Suddenly, I heard Jessica's voice from behind and instinctively turned around. There stood Jessica, looking pale. Her lips were of a terrible color. She glared at me with an upward gaze. Jessica, you look terrible." "Of course I do. I'm still running a fever. Got called in despite that, but I'm glad I came. Got to see something interesting," she said as she gently took a seat next to me. Emily, who had just returned from seeing off some guests, saw Jessica and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" "Don't worry about me. I'm fine. Everyone, get back to your work," Jessica said and cleared the reception room. I braced myself for a reprimand. It's like I was neglecting my duty by claiming I couldn't do what I was supposed to do. I figured I'd have no right to complain even if I got fired for negligence. "You're such a lying prince." Those unexpected words came out of Jessica's mouth. I was dumbfounded and could only utter, "What? Don't you remember me? That's cruel." I looked closely at Jessica's face. She must be feverish. Her face was pale, only the area around her eyes was slightly red. It looked like she had been crying. Suddenly, memories flooded back. "Oh, we've met before, right?" I was certain now. The girl with swollen red eyes, crying in a corner of a park in a foreign country, Europe. That image overlaid with Jessica before me. "Oh, in Germany." To my exclamation, she smiled warmly. "You finally remember. Since that day, you've been my prince on a white horse." When I approached the crying girl, she whispered in a tiny voice, "I don't understand." She was acting tough, saying she only needed to speak English and didn't need friends in a foreign land, but tears kept pouring from her big eyes. Being addressed in English must have comforted her. When I was still a young boy, I confidently told her, tears streaming down her face from trying to put on a brave front, a piece of advice my father once gave me. If you can speak multiple languages, the world becomes so much bigger for you. It's a waste to just confine yourself to a small world. Just try mustering up a little courage and strike up a conversation. I remember looking at her, clearly older than me, and proudly saying those words. Her tears stopped, and I felt relieved seeing that. I always wanted to meet the boy from that time again. I remembered his face and name. I thought you looked similar, but your personality seems so different now. I wondered if you really were my prince. Chuckling, Jessica remarked. The day after I met her, she told me she had gathered the courage to speak to a classmate at school. It was as if a spell had been cast, making the invisible barriers between them crumble instantly. Having parents with jobs that took them all around the world, she had been moving from place to place herself. Comparing our overseas stints, we realized there were times when we almost crossed paths, quite the close calls. I always thought we'd have a fateful reunion overseas, but to meet here of all places. It's hardly romantic, she pouted, looking somewhat childish. Truth be told, I often went back to that park, hoping to find the girl I had seen crying. But never finding her, I moved to the next country. After returning to the States, I was so caught up with my own life that I never thought of her. It's quite a curious connection we have. I wish I could have come up with something more eloquent, but that was all I could muster. Don't you think it's more like fate than just a curious connection? You get what I mean, right? Considering her perspective, she might be right. I always believed, with no real basis, that I could pull fate towards me. Impressive, right? She boasted, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. Leaning in close to my face, she gave a wide grin. You don't think you can escape, do you, Tommy? You're the one who expanded my world, so you have the responsibility to stay by my side in this vast world. Understand? Such a forceful approach was very like her. but I didn't mind it at all. With the world being so vast, I wonder how I got caught. Don't you think you're getting a little cheeky? The image of her laughing so hard she'd fall over in a wedding dress was a scene for a not-so-distant future. Running from her, who had strong-armed fate into granting this chance encounter, seemed impossible. I guess if this were a novel, it'd be a happy ending. My name is David. I'm just an average office worker. I'm not really into standing out, so I'm pretty quiet at the office. I just get through the work given to me, and if I finish without mistakes, I consider it a job well done. While my colleagues are hustling to climb the corporate ladder, I'm not really interested in promotions. I just hope for a peaceful day, every day. Luckily, I ended up working for a top-tier company. I rarely have to work overtime, and I think my salary is pretty decent compared to others at my age. My days are pretty much the same. I just go to work and come home every day. Cook up a simple meal, enjoy my dinner while watching TV, and then head to bed. But maybe this monotonous life is what happiness is all about. That's what I've been thinking. I don't have a family anymore. Both my parents have passed away. I still remember that time. I was in second grade. That day, both my parents had the day off, and they went out in their car, saying they had some major shopping to do. They said they'd be back by the time I got home from school, but they weren't back by evening. As night fell, a neighbor lady, Mrs. Wilson, approached me. I had been sitting in front of the house for hours, so she probably got concerned. When I explained the situation, she took me to the nearby police station. I don't know what Mrs. Wilson told them, but I remember the police suddenly getting very busy. They told me that my parents might have been in an accident. I was taken to the hospital by the police. However, upon arrival, I was told the devastating news that both my parents had died. The only thing I remember from the hospital was seeing the bodies of my mom and dad. I can't recall what happened after, like the funeral or what happened to our house. Maybe the mental shock was too big, as I seemed to have lost some of my memories. Next thing I knew, I was in an orphanage. I had no grandparents or relatives, so I had nowhere else to go. There were other kids in the facility, but I didn't really interact with them. I just followed the rules set by the staff and kept to myself. I stayed at the orphanage until I turned 18 and moved out after graduating high school. Maybe I should go to college was my main thought. With that in mind, I went on to college. Thanks to the savings and insurance money left by my parents, I could attend college without financial worries. Go to school, work a part-time job, come home and sleep. I became less talkative after my parents' death, and that hasn't changed even now as an adult. I guess I've always avoided interacting with people. Being bad at expressing my emotions probably didn't help. I've never really had close friends, let alone a significant other, mostly just acquaintances. I had always thought I'd probably end up being single, and I was okay with being alone. Even though I was just living an ordinary life, something unexpected happened one day. I'll never forget it. It was when I turned 30. On that day, I was working as usual. Things were going smoothly, and I was having a rather laid-back day. I decided to get some office supplies from the supply cabinet. To my surprise, we were running low on a lot of items. Normally, the newer employees would restock the supplies, but I thought, since I had some time, why not do it myself? So I said, I've got some free time, I'll go get the supplies, and headed to the supply room. As I switched on the light and entered the room, I began to load up a cart with supplies from my list. Then, a woman from another department walked in. Our eyes met, and we gave each other a courteous nod. Wow, a pretty girl just walked in. That's what crossed my mind instantly. It wasn't a crush or anything, but I found myself wondering, is she from the next department? I don't recall such a pretty girl working here. Taking a closer look, she had these cute beauty marks under her eyes, which made her already cool-looking eyes appear even more attractive. No, don't keep staring. It'd be so embarrassing if she caught me. I realized I'd been unintentionally staring and felt a rush of embarrassment. Taking a brief, deep breath, I composed myself and went back to collecting the supplies. But then, it happened. Suddenly, there was a deep rumbling sound, followed by a strong side-to-side shake. It was an earthquake. The shaking grew more intense. Being in the supply room, there was a high risk of things falling down. The spot where she and I were located was at the back of the supply room. The exit was too far, and with the intense shaking, it felt too risky to make a dash for it. Cover your head. Use a basket or turn a box upside down and protect yourself, I shouted instinctively. The tremor felt like it lasted forever, but thanks to the fixed shelves in the supply room, a major disaster was avoided. Supplies were scattered all over the place, but neither of us got hurt. "Are you okay?" I rushed over and asked her. She seemed fine, replying, "Yay, that was quite a shock. It lasted quite a while, didn't it?" She slowly got up and added, "It's quite a mess here, but maybe we should head outside first and check on others." Concerned about potential aftershocks and with the supply room door still closed, I started heading towards the door. "Oops, sorry." She bumped into my back. "Something wrong, though." Looking at the storage room door, I was taken aback and stood there. She leaned over from behind me and was equally stunned. To our disbelief, cardboard boxes that had been piled near the door had collapsed, blocking our exit and the path to the door. To make matters worse, it seemed a box had opened, scattering promotional items all over the place. "We can't get out this way. Should we clean this up?" She agreed with a sigh. I started moving the heavier boxes, asking her to pick up the lighter promotional items. "Why of all places did it have to block the door?" She complained, but continued neatly placing the scattered items back into the boxes. "Just hang on a bit longer. We'll clear a path to the door soon." I rolled up my sleeves, ready for some heavy lifting. "All right, once we move this, we can get the door open." At last, we cleared a path to the door. Thinking we could finally leave, I twisted the doorknob and pushed. Thud. "Huh?" A dull noise echoed, and despite several attempts, the door would only open a few inches. "This isn't good," I murmured to myself. Peeking through the small gap in the door, I saw a cart loaded with supplies blocking it from the other side. Other boxes had fallen over in the corridor, making it even harder to access. The cardboard boxes and cart had gotten jammed in such a way that the door wouldn't open. I tried jostling the door multiple times, but it wouldn't budge. "We're stuck," I sighed, feeling a wave of despair. But on the bright side, other co-workers are still around. Someone will eventually come. So, I decided to team up with her and start cleaning up the scattered promotional items and supplies. "We really got trapped, huh?" she teased, noticing my involuntary sighs, and said in a cheery voice. "Yeah, I really thought we'd get out," I responded, laughing. However, our conversation was brief. We silently continued our tasks. As I was thinking we were nearly done, an unmistakable growling sound broke the silence. I turned my head towards the sound. She looked embarrassed as she held her stomach. "That was mine. Did you hear that?" Her face turned beet red with embarrassment. "Yes, I heard it loud and clear." I said it honestly, and we both burst out laughing. Although we were strangers, that little moment of laughter lightened the mood. While continuing to tidy up, we chatted a bit and shared our names and departments. Her name was Sarah, 4 years younger than me, and she worked in the department next to mine. As we talked, a voice from the other side of the door called out, "Hey, is anyone there?" Peeking through the gap in the door, a voice said, "Hold on, we'll clear the way." A few folks moved carts and other obstacles, enabling our safe exit. Luckily, the earthquake's damage was minimal, just some items had fallen from shelves and desks. By the next day, we were back to normal. From then on, my days were filled with routine work. Yet, I would often bump into Sarah, whom I'd met in the storage room, in the hallway, lobby, or the staff cafeteria. I hadn't realized it before, but we had crossed paths frequently within the company. We began greeting each other whenever we met. One day during lunch, while I was eating in the cafeteria, Sarah approached, asking, "Mind if I join you?" We took that opportunity to express our gratitude for that day we spent trapped together. It seemed we never found the right moment to stop and talk about it before. Sarah also wanted to thank me, saying, "I'm so glad you were there with me that day. I'm not sure if I could have gotten out if I was alone in the storage room. You really saved me." From then on, I often chatted with Sarah. Due to our lunch breaks frequently overlapping, we'd often eat together or have coffee afterwards. Though I was always a bit shy and struggled to converse, Sarah was always proactive in starting conversations, so there was never a lull. Eventually, we began to occasionally dine out in the evenings. It felt strange for a socially awkward guy like me to be out and about, engaging in so much conversation. Somehow, I just clicked with Sarah. After one of our meals, Sarah opened up about her feelings for me. It was the first time that someone confessed to me like that. I was taken aback, but that's when I realized my own feelings. Soon, Sarah and I started dating. Things moved swiftly, and before we knew it, we were discussing marriage. After a successful proposal, I visited Sarah's parents. On the day of the visit, Sarah's parents, who also lived with her older brother and his wife, warmly welcomed us. While I had planned for a brief visit, they insisted on having dinner together, making me feel right at home. Being a man of few words, I barely answered the family's questions. They even inquired about my family. I answered all their questions honestly. However, a few days after the visit, I received a message from Sarah. Apparently, Sarah's sister-in-law, Lisa, wanted to have a word with me. I wondered if they might be against our marriage, but that wasn't the case. I was told we'd discuss the matter in person, so a meeting was arranged between Sarah, Lisa, and me. On the appointed day, we met at a quiet cafe. Let me get straight to the point. Lisa began, then started asking detailed questions about my mother. When she passed away, her name, maiden name, place of birth, blood type, and more. She also inquired why I didn't have any grandparents or relatives. I answered everything within my knowledge. After a pause, she said, "Look at these photos. Does this woman look like your mother?" She showed me 2 pictures of a young woman who unmistakably resembled my mom. After confirming the resemblance, she took another breath and asked, "You're an only child, right?" When I replied yes, Lisa gave a quiet nod. She took another deep breath and said, "Let me tell you the truth about you," looking me straight in the eye. Confused, I waited for her next words. "This woman, she's my mother." Lisa's lips trembled as she spoke. I was in disbelief, asking her to repeat herself over and over. But she was unequivocal. "She's my mother." What does that mean? I tried to organize my thoughts as I listened to Lisa's story. Lisa had been told she was an orphan and was raised by her grandparents. One day, while cleaning up, she found a photograph. When she showed it to her grandmother, she hesitated at first but eventually admitted that the woman in the photo was Lisa's mother. She also explained why Lisa had been separated from her parents. To start with, Lisa had a brother 2 years her senior. Their mother became pregnant with him at 16. Both parents were the same age, meaning the father was also 16 at the time. The mother was determined to have the child, and the father intended to marry her when he turned 18. However, this was met with strong opposition from the mother's parents. These grandparents were strict and believed in strict adherence to family traditions. Yet, the young mother persisted and gave birth at the age of 16. Afterward, while juggling jobs having dropped out of high school, she entrusted childcare either to daycares or her parents. The father, on the other hand, continued attending high school while working part-time jobs to make ends meet. Both were genuinely committed to raising their child. Despite the continuing objections from the grandparents, the young couple had decided they would marry once they turned 18. Then, Lisa was conceived. The news infuriated the grandparents, but the baby was eventually born. This birth took place when both parents were 18 and they intended to register their marriage that very year. However, the grandparents staunchly opposed, especially against the father, whom they perceived as the culprit for their daughter's teenage pregnancy. Frictions became a daily affair, primarily revolving around the children's future and caregiving. They chastised their young daughter, often remarking, "You're just a child who had a child. Listen to what we say." Still, the determined mother, aiming to keep her family intact, was met with a stern "Leave the kids and get out. You're disowned." Numerous attempts were made to reconcile, and she tried taking her children with her, but the grandparents stood firm. Ultimately, she was estranged without any contact with her children. I was shocked to learn about the tumultuous past of my parents. And the fact that I had a sibling was a revelation to me. Incidentally, the grandfather has since passed away, and the grandmother, though still alive, is now in a nursing home. Lisa, without mentioning anything about me, had inquired again about her mother. Moreover, given that our grandmother's surname was quite unique, she was certain that they were blood-related. The week after hearing this story, I, along with Sarah and Lisa, visited our mother's childhood home. Presently, my elder brother's family is living in our grandmother's house, and it was the first time I was introduced to him. Following that, Lisa and I went to the nursing home where our grandmother resided. Although hesitant to meet her at first, we decided to have a conversation. Initially, our grandmother couldn't believe my existence and was taken aback, but noticing the resemblance I bore to my mother, she mentioned how much I looked like her. Our grandmother was unaware that my mother had married my father, and she certainly had no knowledge of the tragic car accident that took my mother's life. Hearing this, tears streamed down our grandmother's face. She deeply regretted disowning her daughter due to parental pride and expressed her desire to apologize if given a chance to meet her daughter again. The town where my mother and Lisa grew up was quite a distance from my current residence, yet, little did I know, my sister lived so close by. That year was not just significant for meeting Sarah, but also for discovering and connecting with blood relatives like my siblings and grandmother. Fast forward a few years. "Daddy, no, Dad's playing with me. Daddy, Daddy. All right, let's all play together, okay?" I was surrounded by my children, unable to move. My kids really love their daddy. Oh, and don't get me started on me. I'm crazy about him too. Sarah teased as she too hugged me. "Come on, Sarah, not you too." Everyone giggles and clings to me. Now 38, I'm living a lively life with my 3 beloved sons and my cherished wife, Sarah. And we're soon expecting our 4th child. Since then, I've been in touch with my sister living nearby, and her 3 sons and my children play together as if they were siblings. Though my elder brother lives far away, we, along with my sister's family, visit him annually during the summer break without fail. Interestingly, my brother and I have similar facial features, and even more intriguing is how much my brother's children resemble younger me. When we look closely, all the children share striking similarities. We all look as if we were born from the same parents. We often jest. The bond of blood is indeed mysterious. Despite never having lived together with my siblings, our interactions felt natural from the start. Given how I was never adept at social interactions, me being able to interact well with my siblings surprises me. Having once believed I would live a life of solitude, never did I imagine that in just a few years, I would be surrounded by the warmth of a family. Life truly is unpredictable. I aim to cherish this unexpected happiness.